Hey everyone, welcome back. Let us talk today about this is going to be, well, the third case study that I've brought to you. These are case studies that are based on compilations of businesses that I've worked with, businesses that I've worked for, businesses that I've worked on, and businesses that people have told me about. And today we are going to talk about something that I've talked around before, and that's the topic of how do you choose between doing wholesale versus direct to consumer? Today's case studies are going to be more about the kinds of designers who might choose to go deeper into the direct consumer side of things versus the wholesale, and also how they might come to those decisions. So let's dive in. So, designer number one, she's been in business for a long time, let's say 15 years. And she already has a whole roster of wholesale accounts and has been serving them nicely for years. She did the trade show circuit. She built the relationships a little bit at a time. They've been, supplying her with cash flow for quite a number of years now, well over a decade that she's had this reliable source of income. And many years ago, she also ensured that she built a good functional website and developed those direct consumer relationships as well. So she's been firing on both cylinders for a very long time. Now, of course, we are in a very different time for things like gold and silver prices. And understandably, a lot of retailers are getting a little bit shy about just placing the same level of orders. They can't get the same volume for their dollar. And so it's been noted that some of the stalwart wholesale accounts that had been so reliable are starting to waver a little bit. On top of this is a designer who's always been very on top of her numbers and has done the analysis to see that at this point, the most profitable side of their business is just selling online, or maybe even selling at shows, or having private trunk shows, or developing that one-to-one retail relationship, has been leveraging social media, has a strong email program, and is just all around been tremendously on top of her marketing. Right. So this is a special case where they have a thriving business on both ends, on both wholesale and direct to consumer. But she is also reading the writing on the wall and has noted how so many of her retailers are starting to falter a little bit and struggle themselves. And while she doesn't want to ignore that, she also cannot ignore her own business and her own numbers. And is starting to make this very slow transition into primarily serving a direct-to-consumer clientele. And so let's talk a little bit about how she's going to manage this transition and what choices she might make along the way. So we can talk about why she made this decision. So obviously, as I mentioned, some wholesale accounts just aren't producing in the same way. Some are closing, and some just don't want to spread themselves too thin with their own cash flow, and so they're having to place smaller orders with all of their designers, or they're having to place smaller orders with all of their vendors. And so this designer can see that the orders are shrinking and wholesale is less profitable. And so it's not the cash flow generator that it used to be. And it's not the profit generator that it used to be because everybody's been having to make compromises on pricing. And this designer is no exception. Even though she's on top of her numbers, she also understands that everybody has a threshold that they don't necessarily want to meet, right? That they're trying to stay below for their own profit margins, which is totally understandable. And part of the reason why we talk about this is that everybody has business decisions to make, right? You, the designer watching this, you have your own business decisions to make. This designer has her decisions to make, and the retailers have theirs as well. And sometimes you hit a point in your business, or they hit a point in their business, and you realize that your business goals actually aren't compatible with each other's business goals anymore. And that is okay. It really is. Anybody within the sound of my voice, I need you to understand that it is okay to make new decisions about what direction you might want to go in. So in this case, she has decided to keep a handful of wholesale accounts to keep supplying them, but will slowly but surely start to drop all of the other ones. Some of this might come with a discussion and a formal announcement. Some of these she just won't be filling orders anymore. or won't be doing the outreach. That part of her business will now slow down so that she can have the time to really do that focus on the e-commerce side of her business. Because look, e-commerce is absolutely, if you have a business in jewelry where you are selling to stores and you're selling online, e-commerce is absolutely more profitable per sale. But that is per sale. And I think if any of you have attempted to go the e-commerce route and like gone it alone, we've all done it. I've done it. Even with the background in e-commerce, it was really, really hard because you're building these individual relationships and you're building them one person at a time and helping people with that feeling of comfort of checking out on an indie designer's website. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy, it takes focus, and it does take a certain amount of investment into doing this. Some people might go with the paid ads route. This designer has, of course, experimented with that. Some people will need to hire a team of people to come in and put together the strategy for them. Other people will just grind and do all of the work themselves. I don't totally recommend that. I've done it. Plenty of people I know have done it. It's not my favorite route to take. It's much better to do this with some support on board, but it is an option. And she needs that time, energy, and focus to ensure that this direct consumer side of her business can really pick up and succeed. And yes, she already has seen the profit come through the doors with the direct consumer business that she's had, but she knows that she needs more time to devote to it. And so that's part of the thought process behind, I'm going to slowly decrease my reliance on wholesale. Now, this is not the right choice for everyone. There are plenty of designers I've worked with who are still relying on wholesale for both profit and cash flow. They've been able to find that nice middle ground that even with the increased gold prices, even with the increased silver prices, they've been able to find those places where their wholesale accounts are happy and they are happy and everybody's happy and they keep them. This is just not the case for this designer. It's part of the reason why I talk about case studies in the first place is that all of us will have our own individual decisions to make. And this is the one that she's making. She's going to reduce her reliance on her wholesale accounts so that she has the time to focus on maximizing that profitability in her business. I know that's like the least like sexy term that a small business owner can use, but that's really what she's doing. She's looking at like, hey, I can sell one necklace for 150 at direct to consumer, or only 75 for the exact same level of cost of goods sold at wholesale. And at wholesale, I have to make a bunch of them. At this one, I only have to make one. Meaning that she might not actually need to increase production in order to bring more money in the door, right? If you're making more profit on one sale than you are selling 10 items at a time, you don't need as many people sitting there making the work. You could even start managing some of it yourself if that's the direction you choose to go in. You can be lean like that, or you can decide like, look, I'm going to level up and hire specific production people who know how to do different things. You can level up your work in a different way. But the idea is that if she is spending less time and less money acquiring wholesale accounts and fulfilling wholesale orders, she will have more time and more profit to be able to invest in her business in different ways that will ultimately bring more profit into the business and will also free up even more cash flow. So this is the decision that designer one ultimately came to in looking at the landscape of metal prices and what it's like to work with retailers right now. So now let's talk about designer number two. So designer number two, she went direct to consumer from the get-go, started out on Etsy, did well there, learned all the ins and outs about selling on Etsy, and then eventually recognized that Etsy was, never going to be her friend and decided to shift to just her own website, still doing those direct to consumer sales, still bringing a lot of money and profit in the door, and has never really explored the wholesale side. It just hasn't come up. And she's kind of starting to wonder if she missed the boat, right? Because it can kind of look glamorous from the outside to see like, oh, this person just got picked up by Urban Outfitters, or, oh, this other designer just got picked up by this other jewelry store that's really popular. And oh my gosh, they're like killing it, right? And she's kind of she has a little bit of FOMO, right? Like she's really wondering, like, should I have gone that route? Should I try this? This is something I've never done in my business. Maybe I should go this direction. Well, she has a little bit of a hurdle to get over. So remember I mentioned she started on Etsy, then moved to her own site. She's great at doing in-person sales, so she can do shows, no problem. She can do trunk shows, no problem. She really likes that consumer interaction. She loves people. She's great at it, right? So direct to consumer actually makes a lot of sense for her. But since she started in direct to consumer, and especially because she started on Etsy, she never really built the wholesale level profit margin into her pricing that she would need to do if she really wanted to pursue wholesale. And that is just a numbers game, right? You set your prices based on who your target audience is. You set your prices based on what your materials costs are and where you're going to be selling. And in this case, because she wasn't selling at wholesale, she never felt the need to build that into her pricing model. So now that she's having these thoughts about, should I push into wholesale? Should I pursue wholesale accounts? Should I even consider a trade show? She's coming to the realization that in order to take this path, that she is going to have to rethink her entire pricing strategy. And the biggest pain point to doing this is that she has spent the last 8 or so years building up this incredibly loyal following. People reorder from her. People order from her more than once in a year, which is tremendous. Like they have an easy time spending money with her. She doesn't really want to disrupt that, right? This is an 8-year relationship that she's had with some of these consumers, and it's more than just a consumer and vendor relationship at this point. It's friendly, it's collegial. Like people follow her, they show up to her shows, they buy more stuff. She can host a private party and people will show up and buy things. It's an amazing power that she has in her business. But the wholesale is like kind of like hanging out at the back of her head, and she keeps wondering, should I do this? Well, she's crunching the numbers and she's realizing that the investment of money that it would take for her to do this big push into wholesale would require her to essentially alienate her entire current customer base, because she would have to add anywhere from 25 to 50% onto her pricing just to make sure that she is covered for her margins at wholesale. And she isn't sure that this consumer base will follow her in that direction. And also has realized that this is going to require a bigger spend of money. So new pricing structure, new consumer base, maybe even needing to do a trade show, which means she could be out like 10 to 15K twice a year, like 20 to 30K like twice a year. Like that's a lot of money that she has not had to invest into her business before. And so she's going through this process and she's thinking, is this the best use of that money? And so now she's starting to think, if I treated this as a budget, say $20,000, what else could I be doing with that same budget that would increase my current business from where it is now? Because remember, she's built these relationships essentially one person at a time. She's great with people. She's great with the one-to-ones. She's great with customers. And she could spend money to acquire wholesale accounts, or she could keep the money in her business working for her in a way that's more profitable. And so the direction that ultimately she led to was A, I like people, and B, if I had to spend $20,000 on my business, is a trade show the best use of that money? And the answer for her was no. Because the answer instead is that $20,000, even in a high cost of living area where she more or less is, could still pay for, say, 4 or 5 months of commercial rent for her own retail space. And that is ultimately where she decided to put her money, because now she can still meet with her customers. Her most loyal fans can still come to visit. In fact, they can visit more frequently because she'll be there 4 or 5 days a week. She maybe needs to hire a second person to work sales. Well, hey, that $20,000 budget, or $20,000 to $30,000 budget could include a part-time once a week person there to help her out with sales, thus increasing her profit margins, thus increasing all of her business, because now it's 2 salespeople instead of just 1. It's a kind of investment that could lead her into more bridal. She's only dipped a few toes into bridal before, but now she'll be in a more public place where people are already asking her about it. And she could branch out into that and again bring more profit into her business. And none of this involves her having to change her audience or her pricing strategy. So ultimately, the route that she decided to go was retail space was right for her. Now, again, I do these case studies to show you that every business owner is going to have to make their own decisions for what works best for them. I know from talking to many of you that actually those in-person interactions, those one-on-one, that retail customer relationship is not in your wheelhouse. You don't enjoy it. I talk to people all the time who don't, in which case her choice to open up a store might not be right for you. In the case of designer number one, pushing strongly, firmly into e-commerce, like she also needs a more of an in-person presence in order to sell her work and help people know about her website, know that they can shop with her online. Again, she's going to need to be in person. Both of these designers not only don't mind that, they enjoy that. If that's not you, then you might have some other answers for what decisions you would make in your business in deciding whether or not you're going to continue down the direct consumer path or if you're going to continue down the wholesale path. Again, everybody needs to make their own decisions for their own businesses. And I share these case studies with you. So hopefully you can see yourself in them, or maybe you don't see yourself in them at all, in which case you get to make your own decisions. Thank you so much for joining me for case study number 3. Please hit like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you again next time.